Plus, the best part is I could play it all I want in this video, the actual recording, and not worry about copyright. So that's one of the first times I've felt this freedom before. I love it. Hey everybody, it's Mike here from The Art of Guitar. Today I want to talk about my process for recording songs. Lately I've just been coming up with crazy songs left and right. And there's a whole thing about the creative process that I'll do in another video. But today I want to talk about how it goes from my brain or my mind, however you want to think about it, to the mix down, the final mix down, where I can finally say this is done and upload it to YouTube for people to hear. For this tune, I'll be using a song I did in the style of Kiss.
She's an odyssey and a novelty, and she'll take it for a ride.
This Kiss tune called Adelaide was a big deal to me because it really made me push forward to finish a song. I didn't want to take a long time on it. I wanted to just have the inspiration, get it out as soon as possible. So it was a really good education. And then things just started to flow after that. Grew up listening to classic Kiss a lot, but as I got older, I really fell in love with the 80s Kiss. Sometimes people kind of laugh at that era, but I love it. You know, when the makeup came off and all of a sudden they just sounded a little bit more polished, a little more poppy, if you will. A lot of that stuff stuck with me because I heard it at a very formative age. Two songs in particular that always stayed with me were Thrills in the Night and Tears Are Falling. There's just like this epic sort of ballad quality to them, but they're still heavy tunes and they have very catchy hooks in them. So I thought, man, it's too bad I'll never hear Kiss write songs like that again. And then it hit me. I'm like, you know what? Why don't I just try to do some sort of fan fiction type song and write one in the style of 80s Kiss, but make it an original? It'd be a really fun challenge. So I just kept humming things, you know, I just waited for something to kind of come to me, and bam, all of a sudden I'm in the shower and I hear the beginning melody and rhythm of the chorus. And it all started with a simple do-do-do-do-do. Just that kind of phrasing hit me. It's almost like when I'm trying to think of a guitar solo and a phrase comes to me and I have to figure out what it is later exactly. So when you hear the actual chorus and I say she's an odyssey, that started off with just do-do-do-do-do. Lots of do-do. The harmony sound that I was really hearing was from the song Who Wants to Be Lonely by Kiss. So I kind of patterned it, like the bigness of the chorus, I guess, from that chorus. And by the way, there's something really freeing about doing songs in the style of other people because I don't have to sit in my own feelings for too long. What I mean by that are some of the things in this song have actually happened to me. It's like a factual thing in my life. But I'm able to do it in the style of what Paul Stanley would do. So it's a little less heavy and it's a little more fun if I do it that way. If I focus on myself and my own feelings too much, I get bogged down and it gets kind of depressing. So with that tiny phrase in mind, I came to the studio, and here's what I usually do when I start a song. I'll open Pro Tools and I'll just tap out a rhythm. So I could hear the melody in my head, the phrasing, so I just tapped a tempo to start it off. And it happened to just be 120, which is a pretty standard beats per minute. Once I had the click established, so I had the tempo established, I brought out the guitar and I tuned it down a half a step because a lot of early Kiss songs are a half a step down. And I started to play around a little bit. So first I tried to find the chords to the melody that I heard in my head. So that takes a little while because you kind of have to, mix and match to see what sounds the best with what you came up with. What I ended up with was just a series of power chords. So I knew it was going to be actually E flat, but I'll just pretend I'm in standard right now. So I went do-do-do-do-do, and I heard do-do-do-do-do. I like that switch to C. You can't go wrong with E to C for some reason. And then I brought it down to A. And then with a little experimenting, I like going up to B after that. I knew I wanted some sort of connecting riff. So I have some really embarrassing recordings. What I do is when I get an idea, like in the shower, for example, I'll run out and I'll sing them into my phone so I don't lose them. And I'll show you a couple of those throughout this video, but this is when I figured out sort of a connecting idea. A lot of composing is just transcribing what came to you. It's kind of strange. So eventually I figured out it was... I thought that's kind of cool. It's a little bit reminiscent of some Randy Rhoads, but different enough to make it original. The tough part was putting it into the riff the right way. So I thought, what if I started off with it? Like a couple pickup notes. After that, I thought, I'm going to create some cool rhythm that I can base most of the song off of. And I came up with this, but I had to change it. So I went... So those are still the same 4 chords. I'm just moving around a little bit. I thought that has a real early Kiss kind of vibe, especially on the bass, if you play those notes on the bass. But the problem was is every time I would play it and then I'd go eat or something, I'd sing Big City Nights by the Scorpions in my head. So I changed it up just enough to make it not that. I played back the track once I recorded that rhythm part, and for some reason I just heard the next part come to me, but it was a little too much like War Machine. I heard like... That's the problem with having all these years of, every Kiss song in your head. You're gonna probably copy something, you know what I mean? So I kind of have to be careful of that. So instead I just went down here and went... Yeah, that sounds pretty badass. What if I changed it enough so it kind of, the beat skips a little bit like... Oh, that's pretty cool. But it got a little dark. I thought, man, this is very Creatures of the Night. Not the song, but the album. It's got that real darkness to it, like War Machine. So I added a little bit of... That gives it kind of the fun... Asylum era Kiss or Animalized Kiss. So far I had the idea for the chorus, I had the main guitar, chord progression riff, I had this little tag that I thought sounded pretty cool, and then I also had the intro idea. One thing I really wanted to do was add a cool pre-chorus. I'm a sucker for a good pre-chorus. So I thought, Paul likes to throw in, even if it's not a super ballad song, he likes to throw in some real pretty, if I may use that adjective, pre-choruses to songs. And right away, I heard a 12-string in my head. So luckily, I have one, and I picked it up, and I came up with this idea. Let me grab it. So once again, I'm in the shower, and I hear this. This is the melody I heard. Sorry, I'm a little bit out of tune. But that's what I heard melody-wise. I just pictured Paul's voice, which is very helpful. So whenever I'm doing these, in the style ofs, I just hear the singer. And for some reason, it just sings in my head and comes up with things. So that's what I heard melody-wise. For that, I just heard 2 chords. So I heard it go from the C to the A. Then I heard some sort of... Sometimes my brain fills in the gaps, and it just added more of like a GA thing, which made it to the final mix.
Girl, you're gonna crash, 'cause she's down on her luck and she's giving it up for the taking.
That was a huge relief because the pre-chorus builds right into the chorus, and I knew I already had the melody for the chorus, just not the lyrics yet. So I was pretty stoked at this point. By the way, I know I'm breaking this song down like it's some legendary Hotel California or something. I'm not saying that it is. I'm just saying that it's cool to go in depth with a song that I wrote because I know all the details. Plus, the best part is I could play it all I want in this video, the actual recording, and not worry about copyright. So that's one of the first times I've felt this freedom before. I love it. Now, I had a bit of an issue because I had the chorus mapped out in my brain, at least the scaffolding for it. But afterwards, I kept hearing this 3-syllable hit, do-do-do, like a stab of some kind, do-do-do. And I thought, that'd be cool. What words would fit in that? That could probably be the name of the song if I could figure that out. And for some reason, the saying, let me know, came to me. And I was like, wait a minute, that sounds familiar. And it turns out, of course, it was already written by Kiss. There's a song called Let Me Know.
And then you let me know.
It's just one I kind of put in the back shelf of my brain. I forgot about a little bit, but for a while I'm like, let me know. That would sound great. And then I was going to pattern the lyrics after that. I was going to kind of make it about a girl who wanted to possibly break up with you, but she was, not quite getting to the point. She should let you know, if it's kind of like if you're thinking of going to leave, you better say so, like a little Tom Petty. It wasn't until way later that I still had no idea what to put in that little placeholder, the 3-syllable hit, until after I wrote the chorus. And the lyrics for the verses all made me think about like a girl. Some of it, like I said, is autobiographical, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But I thought, it could just be the girl's name. So I tried a whole bunch of different names with 3 syllables, and this is really funny. It's just kind of random. I just thought Adelaide would work. It just fits. It's sort of a sad, reason why I used it, but it just fit. So it was a really good placeholder.
Innocent, like an angel in disguise.
And when I wrote it out, I thought, oh, people are going to think it says Adele or something. But I didn't care because it fits so well. That rhymed. So if I could find the notebook, I'll put some images of what I had, and I'll talk about the writing process of the lyrics because that is my least favorite part of this whole thing. But I'll try to find the actual evidence of it. It's around here somewhere. I put down the click and a scratch guitar track, and I bounced it to my phone, and what I do is I sit at the drum set and I just listen to it, and I imagine what parts should be there for the drums. I was thinking Eric Carr type playing, so big toms, wish I could get a big room sound, but I don't have a big room here, so I added some effects in the mix down. But just hitting the toms on the downbeats, like 1, 2, or the downbeats. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. And then to build it up, I add the kick drum to it. So I go back and forth between the two, and it builds up. And I actually ended up doing it backwards. I wanted it to be kick, tom, or the other way around. But either way, it ended up backwards on the recording, but I kept it because to me, it was almost like I had another drummer that was recording with me, and they just came up with an idea that I didn't think of. I know that sounds weird, but when you record by yourself a lot, you love those little surprises that, you would have never thought of. Like, whoa, that was an accident, but I'm going to definitely keep that. Then there's the build up and the stop, and I knew it had to stop before the chorus so that the choruses could come in as strong as I wanted them to. The Who Wants to Be Lonely kind of vibe. So when it goes, she's an Odyssey, and all the choruses hit right where there's a dead stop, that's exactly what I was going for.
Another side, she's an Odyssey.
The melody came to me pretty quick for the verse, but I had to be careful because it was kind of edging on sounding too much like Is That You?
Cats drooling on the bar stool.
Which is the first track of Unmasked, which is one of my favorite albums growing up, which is funny because a lot of people hate that album. But it really inspired me, and I thought, I don't want to copy that vocal line, but it's kind of close to it if you listen to it.
Good looking in red shoes and her tattoos.
I may have jumped the gun a little bit on the drums because after I laid down a few takes, I decided that I was going to go with the second take that I did. I was happy with it at the end. You could hear me say something like, oh, that was cool, or whatever. Because I was pretty excited about the direction it was going. But once I had the drum track down, I was kind of handcuffed. So I had to build around that. I could have went back and changed things, but I was really happy with the performance, and I thought, well, I bet you I can conform the rest of the song to the drum beat. I don't always like to do that, but in this case it worked out. After the drums were secured, I did some guitar tracks, which I ended up redoing a couple different times because I had new ideas. For example, during the chorus, I wanted to bring this back. But I thought it'd be really cool to tag along back and forth with chorus phrases, but do it an octave higher. So I figured out it was like, and I'm putting that in between the chord changes, so you can hear that in the chorus.
Her soul is heaven sent, dirty and innocent, like it.
As I was recording the guitar parts, all I had for vocals was me just going do-do-do-do and la-la-la and just doing a bunch of fill-in for the, phrases and melodies, not knowing what the words were going to be still. I was dreading writing the lyrics, so I put that off till the very end. For guitar tracking, I used my Inglehead. It's a retro Tube 100 into my 4x12 Marshall cab. It's a 1960s vintage. Sounds pretty good. I probably should have used less distortion, but I was digging the groove and the tone of that. I used my SG for one of the tracks and then this Les Paul for the other one because of Ace Frehley. I need the Les Paul for that. It was time to record the bass, and that's always fun because, it's the in-between to the drums and the guitar. So it was real kind of easy for me to lay down what I thought Gene would do. So I had a real plotting bass part that was, I just played all out. I didn't hold back. For that, I actually used a Dark Glass preamp, and I went direct from that into my Pro Tools system. But I also took a microphone, an RE20, and I put that in front of the speaker in front of the cabinet, which gave me more of the beefy sound. It's a good blend together. I kind of wish I would have added more of the low, but the bass is audible and you can sort of feel it, so I'm pretty happy with it. But if I had to re-record, I would add a lot more of the beefy stuff. After the bass was down, I had some new guitar ideas and I thought I could tighten it up a little bit more. So I went back the next day and re-recorded a final guitar take for each of the guitars. So my SG and then the Les Paul as well. Still didn't have the guitar solo though. I like to wait till the end for that because I like to hear what the vocals do so I can kind of play off of them a little bit too. I finally got to the point where I had no choice. I had to write the lyrics. So it was actually election night. I'll never forget that because I didn't want to really watch and pay attention to the news because it was driving driving me crazy, just the whole build up to it. And everybody's just losing their minds that day. So I thought, I'm just going to spend the whole day in the studio writing lyrics to this song. And if I get it done, I'll record the vocals as well. I kind of mentioned the songs earlier that were inspiring me as far as lyrically or theme wise. And the thrills in the night really get to me because I used to imagine, I was pretty young, but I used to imagine like this pretty girl who was in the city and, she's doing maybe not the most holy of things, but doing whatever she has to do to get through life. So the idea came to me of an angel in disguise, even though that sounds a little bit cheesy in a way. But then I thought, hey, I'm writing kind of a Kiss tune here, so it doesn't matter. All bets are off, just go crazy. So instead of devil in disguise, which a lot of people have used, I just thought angel in disguise is cool. And then I thought if you're in disguise, you'd have tattoos, a bunch of ideas just came to me after that thought happened. So I sat down on the notebook and what they say is you just bleed as someone creating, you just bleed onto the paper. And I tried all sorts of things. I kept trying to match the words up with the phrases and the melodies that I had. And so inevitably you still have to be flexible because it's not always going to fit like a glove. And I don't think you want it to because, you set up a template for yourself. Doesn't mean you have to stick with it. Sometimes like an inspiration will come and you'll totally change the direction it was going to go. So I was pretty happy with the verses. I thought, red shoes, tattoos, paying your dues.
Good looking in red shoes and her tattoos, paying all her dues.
Those rhymes just started coming to me, and I was really happy when I felt like the floodgates were starting to open. And then I was able to get autobiographical a little bit because I was having a lot of trouble on the second verse. By the way, a lot of people wonder what the hardest part of writing lyrics is. I'll get more into this in my creative video, but it's the second verse. It's almost like you say everything you want right away in the first and the chorus, and then you're like, now what? So I elaborated a little bit, and I thought about the time when I was younger, and I had a girlfriend, and we broke up, and then a few months later, she ended up becoming a stripper, and we saw her at a club. Long story. It was weird, of course. And then afterwards, I actually paid money to go backstage and talk to her. It was just one of those weird moments that I think at the time I was like, someday I'm going to remember how crazy this is. So I put that kind of into the song, but I made it a little bit different. I had to be careful because I didn't want it to become like an explicit song necessarily. So when I say stuff like she got down on her knees, right away I say, but it's only a tease.
And she's down on her knees, but it's only a tease.
And then for some reason the phrase "and I'm aching" came out, and then "I'm breaking," and I thought I could do a really cool Paul Stanley like "Hi, I'm breaking" for that part.
And I'm breaking.
Remember, since it's going to be Paul Stanley singing it, kind of, I was able to detach from it a little bit. If I was going directly off of my feelings, I think I wouldn't have made a song that flowed like it did. I think it would have been way more depressing. Once the lyrics were done, I remember thinking this is going to be a big process now, recording all of these harmonies and getting the vocals the way I want them. So I started off with a chorus and I just did the main line first of all, and then I added the harmonies afterwards. And the harmonies were really tricky because the one underneath it was okay, the one above it was all right, but then there's that third one. I call it the George Harrison harmony. And if you listen carefully, there's a single line that goes through that's pretty much straight. So the rest of them follow the movements of the melody, but there's one harmony that just kind of goes right through the middle.
Her soul is heaven sent, dirty and innocent.
And that took forever to figure out how that was going to work. I was sitting there with my guitar, working out the harmonies, like, okay, that works. Sometimes I can't just do it organically. I have to use an instrument to figure out the harmonies. But once that third harmony hit, I was just in heaven. I'm like, okay, we're good. Then I did the rest of the verses, changing a couple words here and there. If they didn't quite fit the music like I thought they were going to in my imagination. Once you actually, when the rubber hits the road, as they say, things need to be altered a little bit. Otherwise, it could sound like you forced things in. I wanted things to flow a certain way. There's a double chorus at the end. It's something I do in a lot of songs that I write. I always love that you're doubling up at the end, especially if it's a decent chorus, because you get to hear it twice. But I like there to be some variations. So at the last second, I threw in some phrases that I threw away from my original draft. So I ended up putting a mythology in there at the very end instead of an anomaly. I have to admit, the most fun I had, though, recording the vocals for this were the ad-libs. I have a whole bunch that I threw away, but just when he starts talking after the bridge and he's like, I want you by my side and all that stuff. That stuff I was just sort of, winging at the time, and I kept the ones I thought sounded something like what Paul would do.
You know how I feel about you, girl. and I want you by my side. Come on, Ella. One last
Lots of come on girls and all that kind of stuff. That's all from my Paul Stanley library, along with things like vodka and orange juice. If you know Kiss, you know why that's funny. The next part is what most people asked about. They were wondering about how to get the vocals to sound like Paul Stanley. This is a bit controversial, but I have to admit that it's the one thing, the tipping point in all of this that allowed me to become the most creative. Because up until now, I've been real apprehensive because I'm not a huge fan of my own vocals or my voice when I talk in videos. And my whole life, that's been a problem because I grew up with allergies. I was never really able to develop my voice because I've always had sinus problems. You could probably always tell that I have a bit of a stuffed nose almost all the time. So I'm never truly happy with my voice. You know, I'd go so far as to say, yeah, my voice sucks most of the time. Even though I sang backing vocals in a lot of bands over the years, I've never quite loved my voice. What freed me is I now have a way to color the sound of the main vocal to sound like the different singers from the different bands that I choose. So I found this thing called Kit's Vocal Builder or something like that online. And what you do is you could choose from, they have like different voices that are built into it or whatever, but it also gives you the option if you want to feed it some examples that you want, and then you submit your vocal wave. You basically input your vocal wave from Pro Tools into it, and it can color it to sound like it's mixed with the vocal that you choose. I justify it by thinking of it almost like a guitar effect pedal in a way. Like if you play guitar with clean sound, it's cool. But then you add a certain pedal, or, you know, some amps actually have built-in presets, like this is the David Gilmour preset. All of a sudden you have a David Gilmour vibe going on. So I'm literally singing every part that you hear. All the backup vocals are me without any type of filter at all. But the main vocal to sound more like Paul got put through this program in order for that to happen. I'm okay with it. I know it seems a little bit cheap, you know, but I'm okay with it because it frees me to really express myself the way I want to. Over all these years, this is like a miracle for me. I'm also bringing in other singers. So I have a guy that's going to come in and do, I don't want to give it away, but a pretty cool song. And then I have a female friend that said she's totally up for doing like a Hailstorm song or something. So I'm psyched about bringing in real singers, but because I'm such a loner and a hermit, I'm always here at like 3 a.m. recording. It's really nice for me to be able to sing a part and then say, I kind of want to add some Paul Stanley to that and be able to do that. So once I added that to the main vocal, I was in heaven. I'm like, okay, this is getting very close to what I envisioned in my mind. I had to do the guitar solo though. I was a little bit nervous about that, but I left a little bit of a space for a solo. I should have doubled it because in that era, they would have given Bruce Kulick, for example, a lot longer to solo. But I just threw in this little, I think it's a 4-bar solo, just kind of quick. No, it's an 8-bar. Never mind. But for that, I thought, what would Bruce do? He'd do some octave stuff. So I have some octave, you know, things happening. I think I stole that idea from Hide Your Heart, that solo. Even though I think Paul does the octaves and Bruce does all the licks. And I couldn't help myself. At the end of the solo, I had to do a fast run. Sometimes I think, oh, it can't be all melodic. But it is musical in a way, so I was happy with the final result. Once I captured the solo, I was like, okay, I think I'm done with everything except for the mixing. By the way, this guitar is like a godsend when it comes to recording, because a few parts in the song, like after the first chorus, I throw in a little bit of a lead part, and it just has this mid-range or something, it's hard to explain, that cuts through the mix in a great way. So I don't have to spend a ton of time in mixdown trying to EQ it so it fits into the mix. This thing just does the right stuff. I love it. Now, I'm very, very blessed to have a lot of great gear over the years. You know, I went from nothing to my friend Chris started getting into recording, and he taught me all the ins and outs of recording, you know, microphones, all that kind of stuff, mixing. I'll do another video on the recording process because somebody just asked me how I mic the drums and all that stuff. So I'll show that in another video when we go deeper. But I still rely a lot on, you know, getting lucky sometimes in mixdown. I can get close, but there's always that thing where I'm, you know, guessing, or I'm just like, I hope this works. And sometimes I do get lucky. I got the drums and the bass working together pretty well. And when I brought in the guitars, I was happy. I split them left and right, so it was a big stereo spread. Did some room reverb for the guitars because I didn't want huge reverb, like open space sounding like a hallway. So I kind of kept it roomy because I think a lot of Kiss songs have that roomy guitar tone to it. I was very happy how the vocals sat into the mix. I made them a little louder than maybe I should have, but I was proud of them. And they're a bit saturated because when you do all the processing to the vocals, it does add a little bit of this weird fuzziness to it that you can kind of hear in some parts. But it also allows it to sit really nice into the mix.
I see for 50 and she smiles pretty, takes me backstage. How much can I take?
The backing vocals took some tweaking to get the levels right. Sometimes one of the harmonies sticks out funny, so I had to be sure to compress things the correct way. And I added the reverb to that so they all kind of gel together, which I loved. And at the very end, I felt like it was missing something, so I added a little bit of like Christine 16 piano. And I knew I was going to get a little bit of grief for that, adding piano to the stuff, but I'm like, hey, I think it needed it, you know? But I did turn it way down. I wish I would have brought it up a little bit. But one of my friends right away is like, you got to take that piano out. I'm like, too late. Did some mastering. I do that in quotes because mastering is an entire art that I would love to learn. But for right now, I just do some plugins, some presets, I tweak it or whatever. And I was pretty happy with how it sounded. I did have to fix one thing. I drove home that night and I listened to it. I was thinking, I'll just put it up tomorrow. You know, tonight I'll just listen to it. I know there's going to be some tweaks I want to do, but all I really heard was that the vocals were a little too quiet. So I turned around and I came all the way back to the studio and I bumped them up like half, I guess 1.5 dB. And I should have only done 1 dB, but you know, we're just kind of splitting hairs now, but it does matter. And that was my final bounce. When I was driving home, I was like, you know what? I was going to wait till tomorrow to give it that next day treatment, which sometimes you really want to do. I should say always. When you think something is good, wait till the next day and listen to it again with new ears, and you'll probably hear a lot of things that you're glad you waited for so you could fix. I was too excited though. I uploaded it that night and I just went to bed with my fingers crossed. You know, hopefully this is the way I want it to be. And when I woke up, I had gotten, I think, 1,000 views on it, which doesn't sound like a lot for a channel that's my size, but whenever I put up an original song, it's really tough to get views on them, you know, even if it is in the style of another band. But I was happy thinking about back in the old days when I would just show my friend Chris my work or a couple friends, you know, so maybe 5 people would hear it. I woke up and like 1,000 people have already heard it. And if you take the 5 songs that I've done recently and combine the views, it's up to like 25,000 views. Never in my wildest dreams would I think that that many people would hear something that I wrote. Listening to it the next day though, I do wish I had the vocals down 0.5 dB and I wish the song was 5 beats per minute faster. So if I ever went back and re-recorded this song, I would bump it up to 125 beats a minute. The comments were really positive and that got me real excited because a lot of people that I know are big Kiss fans and they were even like, yeah, this could pass as like an early Kiss tune. And my friend Scott from Backstage Community Forum actually brought it. He burned it onto a CD and he brought it to this local event here in Minnesota called Kiss Days, where people jam Kiss and a bunch of Kiss fans get together, and he actually played it for a few people and he said that they were like, oh yeah, that's totally legit. And I believe the music store owner actually kept the CD and so that they were going to play the song every once in a while just to see the reaction. But I did get some comments where people were like, oh, looks like someone's using ChatGPT to write a bunch of songs lately. And I've got a couple comments like that, and it made me laugh because I thought of all the decades that I've put into the craft of songwriting and learning the instruments and just knowing enough songs to be able to pull off something like this. It took a lifetime. So I would never cheapen that by going on ChatGPT and being like, make a Kiss song for me. I feel like that would be almost stabbing myself in the back for all the things I've studied my entire life to be able to do something like this. So as somebody who has never even used ChatGPT, I've only used that program that I told you about earlier for the coloring of the voice. I would never use ChatGPT to help me write anything. I get stuck on vocals all the time. I already talked about how much I just dread doing them, but I can't ever see going on like AI and being like, hey, write these lyrics for me. It's almost too personal for me to allow something else to do it. But that is my process. That is how I go from my mind, what I hear, what I envision, to the final mix down. And I guess even beyond that a little bit. Thank you everyone for watching. We'll catch you at the next video. I've got a burning desire to finish 2 particular in the style of songs. So keep an eye out for those as well. But otherwise, we'll just catch you at whatever video feels right next. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.